So today we're gonna be changing the oil. I haven't done that in a while, and we're gonna add a oil temperature sensor because I have oil pressure sensor for the engine, but I don't have a temperature. So if you look over here, I have fuel, volts, water, miles per hour, RPM, transmission temperature, boost pressure, pump pressure, air and fuel ratio, oil pump pressure. So I don't have oil temperature, and since I run a lot in the street, I want to have that feature so I can monitor, see if it gets too hot and I'm about to race or anything. I also added a air pump pressure sensor, so that's gonna tell me if I have enough pressure to use the boost control solenoid. If it drops below 100, I can see it here, but I can see it on the screen. So I added this pressure sensor. I'm just gonna route the wire into the USM, universal sensor module, wire that up and program it. So you all guys gonna see it when I program it, how easy it is for Racecar to program all the sensors into the USM, which is down here. USM is a universal sensor module. You just connect the cable into the Sportsman over here, and with the computer you just program all the sensors that you want. This one can read up to 18 sensors. In a normal vehicle, which you use regular oil, any synthetic oil, from 6 quarts or to 9 or 8 quarts, you'll be looking at $50 to $60 oil change if you do it yourself. That's including the oil filter. In this case, I have to use a better quality oil, which is this one, and this runs for $17 each quart. That means you're looking at $160 oil change for this particular vehicle. And the reason I have to go with this expensive oil is because it works with the VVT, variable valve timing, and I have to put 50 because I'm using E85, so I need a thicker oil. But here's the catch. Why do I go with 5W50? Well, there's two factors. There's two forces. There's dynamic and kinematic. Dynamic is the force needed to move the oil, and kinematic is how fast the oil is gonna move. So if I go with 15W50, it's gonna be way too thick to the oil pump pick it up when it's cold, and that's bad for coyotes because they use VVTs, variable valve timing, and they have 4 cams. So when the engine is cold, it needs a lot of oil in the cams for them to lubricate and don't burn. Now, the only way you're gonna use 15W50 if you're using methanol, because methanol is really thin, so it's gonna water down the oil real quick, so you need a thicker oil. But for E85 you should go with 5W50. So when the engine is cold, the oil pump gear can pick up the oil and spray all the components on the heads and the engine quick on the startup. And then the 50 is high viscosity for the E85, because 85 drips through the sleeve into the oil. So if you have a thin oil, it's gonna water down real quick, and you're not gonna have the property of the oil in a few miles. So that's why you have to go with 5W50. So you're looking at $160 oil change for these cars, and that's gonna be more frequent because E85, like I said, leaks down to keep the oil contaminated in the engine for too long and be running with it and having engine failure down the road. So it's cheaper to change the oil than the bearings on the engine. So you should change it a couple thousand miles, or depending how many runs you do with the car. For the oil filter, I just go with the OEM one. It just works well, so you don't have to go with any other brand. If you want to, you can, but I just use the OEM. That's what works for me. So let's put the car on the ramps. We don't want to get that thing too hot because I gotta get underneath it. So that's the front for the sensor. Don't forget to remove the oil cap. Not that bad. Looks clean. And still have consistency. So in factory settings, this is for the oil level sending unit. Since I don't have that, I'm gonna use it for the temperature. But what goes in here is oil level sensor. With that being said, I don't have one. So I gotta monitor my oil pressure. If it drops, then it means I'm low on oil. Or if I get 0 readings on oil temperature, it means the level dropped below this line. So I can put a warning light when the temperature drops more than regularly does. So that lets me know that the sensor is not making contact with oil. That means the oil is dropping lower than this point. So it's gonna act like a factory level sensor. If you get a black oil pan and you have a leak, you might not notice it because oil and the oil pan is the same color. So if you get a bare metal, like this bare aluminum, any leaks is gonna be visible right away, so you're gonna be aware of any leaks. So my idea is to drill and tap this plug so I can have my sensor sticking right there, so I can see the temperature. This is the oil temperature sensor that's gonna go in the engine. now I just gotta connect the cable and route it up into the USM factory filter. Look how clean that thing is in there. Nice and shiny. So this sensor normally have a power, a ground, and a signal wire. 3 wires in total. The USM has 4 ports and you just have to pick one, and then later on the data link you just have to program which port you took. Over here we have power, signal, ground, and shield wire. So you can see the ends are already stripped. So now let's just put the cover on and continue. Air pressure sensor is connected, cable is routed into the USM, sensor is connected, and the cable is routed all the way down into the universal sensor module. Over here, that's a finished product. Oil temperature and air pressure all set, just has to be programmed into the data link software. So now let's grab the laptop and connect it to the Sportsman. Here's our cable, USB on this side, 1.2mm jack on this one. Data link software. I only have 2 pages, this one and that one, and I can't put anything else on these 2 pages, so I have to add a 3rd one. I can put up to 4 pages. So we gotta let data link know which sensor we're using. pressure. And this is going to be a 100 psi sensor, so you have to choose 0 to 150 psi. The same configuration. Device successfully programmed. We hit OK. You already added it. I still have this one available. We save it. I'm going to change air and fuel ratio from page 2 and boost pressure to page 3. I'm gonna add engine oil temperature on page 2 and air pressure on 2 as well. Okay, with same configuration. Device is fully programmed. Okay, then we save. When I use the air, you can see how it goes down. So that means it's working properly. Everything is programmed already, so this is the first page. I have RPM, volts, fuel, water, and miles per hour. Second page. Now I have trans, temperature, air pressure, pump pressure, fuel pressure, oil pressure, and now oil temperature. So it's at 84, so it's working, and air pressure is at 89. If I use it, it still goes down, so that means the sensor is working properly. It's a 100 psi sensor. It's a 300-degree sensor. And on the third page, I have boost level, drive shaft, RPM, and air and fuel ratio on this side. So we're gonna start the engine and let's see if our oil temperature goes up properly. So everything is working properly. We got 14 volts, 940 RPM. We got fuel 60%, miles per hour 0, 1. Water we have 138 and climbing. We got transmission temperature, good. Air pressure. There's a tank in the back for the solenoids. It's 105 psi. Pump pressure is 45. If I kick the pump on a higher speed, it goes to 50. That's good. Oil pressure is at 63. Oil temperatures is climbing, so that means that that sensor is working properly. It was at 83 before, now it's at 99, so the oil is going up, the temperature is going up, and now it's 100. So that sensor is working correctly. Boost pressure is -8. It's on vacuum right now. We don't have any dry shaft RPM because it's standing still, it's not moving. And air and fuel ratio is at 14.1 to 0.4, so real good. And that's how you add sensors to the Racecar system. Really easy, straightforward, no complications. It's like a vintage system. They have the same electronics since 2005, so It's like kind of old technology. I'm really surprised this guy's Racecar doesn't do any standalone unit, because they've been in the business doing electronics for cars quite a while. So, but yeah, that's how simple it is to add sensors to the USM, universal sensor module. So for this car, you're looking at around $160 to $180 oil change, compared to a normal vehicle if you do it yourself like I just did, which is like around $40 to $50, including the filter and synthetic oil. That's roughly $120 difference from a normal vehicle.